But let's say you don't have that big of a company, you're a smaller guy. How much does one need to invest to get that visa?
When we're talking about the green card, there is really not much flexibility. There are some investment options that are for $500,000 and the other are $1 million. Generally it's $1 million and the exceptions are $500,000. Okay? And that's a separate category. For the E2 though, there's quite a bit of flexibility. The law basically says it's got to be a substantial investment and it has got to be an investment that generates substantial revenues, but there's no dollar amount defining it. So we look at the nature of the business, and an example really illustrates this, brings this to home. Let's say someone comes and says, look, I'm going to put a hot dog cart on the corner of 5th and Main. It'll generate $90,000 a year. That's good money. It's $10,000 to buy the licensing, the cart, the equipment to get started. Can I get an E2? No, it's not quite substantial. Comes back and says, okay, I now have 10 carts, and some will generate 90,000, some 100,000. So we're looking at revenues of about $1 million a year. It's going to cost me 100,000 to buy and equip these. Is this an E2? Now we are at an E2.
Okay. What about, let's say, going on that one, let's say for each cart I would need to bring in some workers.
Right.
Could I hire people from the States, or would I bring in my own countrymen, or
very good.
friends or family?
Okay, so in the E2 category, the only people who can come in on the E2 are managers and executives, executives being the president of the company, the vice president, chief financial officer. Managers would be those who manage an important function, okay? But typically you're expected to staff from the U.S. workforce, okay? And specialized knowledge. Let's say I am an IT company in the Philippines, and I have developed this piece of software, and my software language is proprietary. Well, I will send over my software engineer as a specialized knowledge personnel to service one of my accounts in the United States.
Okay. Okay, let's say I've had some problems in the past with my visa. Is it going to be a problem trying to get an investor's visa?
Yeah, that depends. And like I said, many people in the past have come to us, they've prepared their own packages, and if you document incorrectly and you give the wrong impression to the consulate, you may wind up damning yourself and not being able to get a visa at all. But many times it's just a matter of not the correct documentation was provided, not the appropriate documentation. You know, you're telling the consular officer the story and you're expressing it with the right documents that conform with the regulations. And so it may be a matter of we review these documents with our clients and I say, oh, well, you've left out these will really help and strengthen your case. We can now go back and apply again, and this time you should be able to get the E2 visa.
Okay, let's say I've sent in my application now. What's usually the time frame, and when can I get any result?
E2 visas are applied directly at the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Now, as of the time of this airing, the Embassy in Manila likes at least 6 weeks to review an E2 comprehensive package with all the documentation that shows that this person qualifies for the visa. Typically, it takes 1 to 2 weeks after all documents are properly organized to prepare the E2 for the consulate. Another 5 weeks for the consulate to review, then there is an interview, and if the interview goes well, the visa is issued within 2 or 3 days.
So how do you usually prepare your clients for investor's visa?
This is probably the most important thing, is our initial consultation with our client. We take the time to go over the 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 5-year plan, where they intend to be in 10 years down the road, okay?
Did you know? Individuals seeking to immigrate to the U.S. on the basis of investment currently find themselves in a climate unmatched in modern history. Many foreign currencies are now enjoying a very favorable exchange rate against the U.S. dollar. For this reason, immigration based on investment in the U.S. continues to be a viable and popular method of coming to the U.S. for many investors and their immediate family members.
Okay, let's say I have a family member back home and they got quite a bit of money, and basically they want to look into a franchise in the U.S. what kind of visas do they look into?
Okay, this is good. Franchises, typically for an E2, your standard franchise, let's say Burger International has operations all over the United States, all over the world. Okay, you want to buy into a franchise like that. Well, one of the requirements for the E2 visa is that it's got to be owned and controlled by a citizen of the Philippines. While you buy ownership in this type of franchise, you really don't have control, because Burger International USA is telling you what you sell, how much you sell it for, hours you're opened, your location, things like that. So it would not qualify for E2. Okay. Let's contrast that with a gas station. A gas station looks like a traditional franchise. It has a logo from who one buys their gas from. But a gas station's true revenues are really generated through the convenience store with the selling of soda, water, cigarettes, candy, and the owner of that type of franchise can set whatever price they want and generate their profits, can hire whoever they want. They can even set up a lube station, a car wash. They generate their own profits there. They exercise more control. The purchase of the gas is only marginal part of the business.
Okay, I've looked into the embassy and immigration websites, and I keep coming across this place at risk. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. The funds for investment visas, this is why it's really, really important to get an attorney. You have to document, first of all, that the money came from lawful sources, did not come from crime. Okay, and it either comes from an individual or from a corporation, or it could be gifted. A father could give his son money, but you have to trace the money and show where the father lawfully earned that money. So that's the sourcing of the funds, and it really creates it required to create a very detailed paper trail. And attorneys are best equipped to look at what kinds of documents best illustrate this. Okay, the placed at risk, it means that at the time you're applying for the visa, that money literally has to have been spent. Your money must have been spent, and you're going in with the invoices and receipts to show it. You can't just merely wire transfer funds from the United States into a corporate account in the U.S. and leave it there. What's to stop you from the minute getting your E2 visa, taking those funds right back out again and never really opening and operating that business? So that's what placed at risk means.
Okay, so we were just talking about lawful sources. Let's say the money isn't from a lawful source. What are some of the consequences that could happen to you when you're applying? Yeah,
this is considered money laundering and is frowned upon by the U.S. government.
Oh, most definitely. So then we got some legal matters.
You have some legal issues. You know, any proceeds from crime will wind up getting you banned for life from the United States ultimately. So you don't want to do that. You want to really use legitimate sources of funds.
Right.
And this can come from salaries earned, a piece of property sold. There are many, many places one can find legitimate sources of funds. I think what you're asking me, if it's difficult to document the lawful sources of the funds that came from lawful means. Yeah, that's an issue. And again, this is why you should use an attorney, because an attorney can go through different ways to show and document where your funds came from, to show that you didn't really get this money from crime, because under no circumstances does the U.S. government want money coming in from embezzlement or crime to be invested in the United States and laundered. Also, if you try and attempt something like that, you're risking a lifetime ban from the United States. So, no, only clean, lawful funds. And people inherit money and things like that, and it's difficult to track. So we sit down, we go through how you possibly obtain the funds, what are the lawful sources. So the consulate doesn't have an issue with that.
How about a corporation? Can a corporation be an investor?
Yes, that's a good question. Corporations can be investors, Troy. For the E2 visa, for the EB5, which is the one for the green card, it must be an individual who's investing his or her own funds. And so that cannot come from a corporation. It really has to come from a personal bank account. But a corporation can certainly establish and set up a company, a subsidiary or an affiliate in the United States, and that will allow it to transfer key personnel on the E2 visa, as long as the corporation is majority Filipino owned and controlled.
So I'm here with partner and managing attorney of the San Francisco office, attorney Jeremiah Johnson. Okay, so to start, what is deportation?
Well, deportation is the process of removing a non-U.S. citizen, an alien, or an immigrant from the United States.